Hey guys, welcome to the Love of Books, Movies, and Happiness. And today we're doing a book review on John Grisham's The Reckoning. This is the first book by John Grisham that I've ever read. I'm trying to branch out into new authors. And I found that while it wasn't horrible, it wasn't necessarily something that I will always read. But it's not a bad book. He's a good writer. It's a little outside of what I'm used to reading. If you like John Grisham, feel free to follow through the rest of the video to the end to get my overall opinion of the story itself and what kind of rating I give it. And of course, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time I do a book review. You never know, your favorite author might be on my list. You just gotta keep watching for that. Alright, so for The Reckoning, it is a 427 and a half page story. I say a half because the very last page technically is 428, but it's not even a full 2 paragraphs on the page. So I don't fully count that as an entire page. It's a very complex storyline. Not complex to where you can't understand it, but complex to where it bounces around quite a bit. When we first start the story, we meet Pete Banning, who is a favorite son of Clayton, Mississippi, a retired vet, a well-known family, and locally a farmer. This is set in a very small town of Clayton, Mississippi, and it's not set in current times. This is a historical fiction piece, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it should be noted that this is set in, I would say, around the 50s, 60s, somewhere around in there. So it's definitely very southern, old world topics that are built into this story. So we meet Pete as he's getting ready for his day. And almost from the very first sentence, you know that something is going to happen. Because his first thought is about killing someone. But it's not like a psychotic serial killer thought. It's just the killing's gonna happen today. So being that he's a farmer, I wasn't entirely sure at first if he was going after like slaughtering pigs or if there was a court trial or someone had been convicted. It wasn't clear in the first couple paragraphs. But we follow Pete as he goes about his day. He gets dressed, thinks about the past but doesn't really go into detail before going to visit his sister. And you just get a little snapshot of his life, especially as he gets ready to put things in order. We follow as he writes a letter to his sister, goes to lawyers to make sure his will is in order, and just does everyday normal stuff someone who's just thinking about the future would be doing. However, by the end of the first chapter, Pete has made his way to the local church, where he gets out of his truck, gets a weapon out of his truck, walks into the sanctuary where the local pastor, who is well loved and has been there for quite some time, is setting up for Sunday service, and proceeds to kill him. There is no real explanation given as to why simply tells the pastor that he knows what it's about before he does it. He then walks back out of the church, where he runs into the local handyman, points the weapon at him, and tells him to go get the sheriff. Now, Pete doesn't run from the police. He doesn't try to hide anything. He goes about his day before he goes home to wait for the police to show up. Now, normally at this point, I would expect the story to take a turn of maybe doing a flashback to the past. One where the author could then show you what led up to these events. Or I would expect some kind of explanation. He's mentally insane, or he has reasons, there was a threat. Something to help the reader understand what is happening at this time. Unfortunately for us, as readers, John Grisham does not feel the need to do that with his story. Instead, he goes into extremely well-researched detail about the investigation, the arrest, all the way up to the actual trial. And by then you're in 4 or 5 chapters into the book, and you still have no explanation of what's going on, other than there's a court trial. And considering that's just the first few chapters, you know it's not the end of the book. So I was still waiting for an explanation. Something. Maybe during the trial it would come out what had happened, and then we'd have a flashback. Now, needless to say, the whole first few chapters of the book covers everything from the attack all the way to the court trial to the end of the court trial, where he refuses to cooperate with his lawyer and refuses to try to put up any kind of defense. Back then, the death penalty by execution or by electrocution, my apologies, was popular in Mississippi. And he was found guilty. Understandably, since he didn't try to fight it, fully admitted to everything, and never really explained to anyone why. So you get through the first few chapters to the end of section 1 of the story with no real understanding of what's going on, besides the fact that you've just read someone commit a crime and then gotten extremely well-researched detail on how they would have handled it. And don't get me wrong, this is a well-researched, well-written story. It's not overly boring. It's just enough detail to give you a clear picture of what's happening. And unfortunately, his talent for writing really comes through on the electrocution. Needless to say on that part, if you have a vivid imagination, don't read that part of the chapter right before bed. It's just not a good idea. You then have to read the rest of the book to fully understand what led up to the attack on the preacher. And for the rest of the book, you are then following it through the eyes of his family. Pete leaves behind 2 grown children who are both in college, a sister, and a wife who's in an insane asylum. Back then, your wife could get put in an insane asylum for any reason the husband chose, and he had her put in at some point. So then we end up following the children's confusion, because they don't understand what's happened. We follow the sister. We don't really see too much of the wife. There's a few scenes with her, but it turns out she does have some mental issues that just leads to a not very good ending for her towards the end of the book. But to get the rest of the story, you have to read the whole book, which is fine. That's the point of any book, is to read it all the way through. But you don't really get your answers until the very end, because halfway through the book, it goes from an explanation on what led up to the murder to 4 or 5 chapters detailing his time as a soldier. Nothing wrong with that. This is where his talent once again comes through, and it's clear that he has a very good ability to research and in detail what he's researched. I don't know for sure, but from the way he writes, it's almost as if he has his own experience. I haven't done that much research on the author, so I'm not sure. But overall, the story isn't bad. It's just very broken up. I can follow the court trial and the resulting execution, and I understand that fully. Once you get to the part where the family starts to get answers on why he did what he did, then the court trial starts to make sense. I get the author trying to show his past and explain him being a soldier, and I respect that. But it does feel as if he needed some more chapters, so he just threw in the history on him being a soldier to fill in some chapters, because he couldn't figure out how to tie everything together. Mixed within all of this, there are some other minor court cases resulting from the preacher's widow going after Pete's family for damages for becoming a widow. And we are once again, through those court cases, given extremely detailed court cases for each and every single one that's done. Which, I get it. The author is known for writing courtroom stories. He's used to detailing those. They just kind of make the story drag a bit. Because then it's like, if you've read one description, you don't really need to know about the other 5 similar court appearances. Alright, so overall opinion of the book. The first part of the book with the court case and the attack, and then the last part of the book where you finally get the answers, are a great story. It'd be awesome if he shortened everything and just put those together. And just took out some of the middle sections. The details are clear. It's obvious that he took his time with this and is very passionate about courtroom dramas. But at the same time, this is a story that tends to drag. One can find themselves bogged down a bit before they even get to the actual answers, because after a while you're sitting there looking at it going, is it worth reading? If, like me, you want answers to why a character did something, then I do recommend finishing it to the end of the book. It does get better. It just takes about 5 chapters to do so. So overall, guys, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is well written and well researched, but the flow of the story just isn't there. I will be trying another John Grisham book, but I definitely won't be purchasing this one. And if any of his other stories are like this one, this probably won't be an author that I keep reading. If you guys know of a John Grisham book I should check out that is hopefully a little more lively than this one, then please feel free to leave a comment and let me know. I want to give him a fair shot and not base it off of one book. I just don't know which one to start with next to actually enjoy it. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this review, remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And check out my Facebook for more. Till next time, keep reading.